Hi friends, it's Scott Giroux with another episode of Power Apps Cafe. In this episode, we're going to be continuing in our series and we're going to add some filtering using the Creator Kit tag picker to our application that we've been building. So stick around and I'll show you some tips and tricks that I use. Okay, so we're inside our app that we've been building and we've got all of the kind of things we've been working on. So sorting in a fully delegatable way. We can filter by an industry type and we've got paging and this is all delegatable. So what we now need to do is let's make a more complex area up the top here. So rather than just a single filter, what we're going to do is we're going to have in this area, we're going to have ability to enter in multiple different industry types and also multiple different status types as well. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing is we've got to actually create the filters, list of the possible filters. And what we're going to do is go into the on visible event here. And at the moment if you remember, we're just applying this, running this function here to set up the filters. And remember, when you run select, it's like simulating a user pressing a button. Then that goes and sets up all the filters. And so we can then call that same functionality from lots of different places. So I'm going to paste this in and we'll go through what this is doing. And this is simply setting up this filter options collection. And that's going to be used to provide the different options that the user can select from in the filter picker. And what we're doing is we are iterating over all the different account statuses and setting this object shape here. And so what this is doing is it's kind of normalizing the account statuses into a consistent shape so that we can now go and add other different types of filters because we're going to use the same picker for lots of different filters. And so what we're doing is we're extracting out a unique key to use, and then we're also extracting the display name. We've got some other things down here. So we're going to use the GUID value of the account status, and that's what's actually going to be used when we do the filtering. We've also got icon name and text color, background color. They're all going to be used to style the tags. And then this last one here is just defining the type of filter that's in this particular set of items here. Because what we're going to do is we're also going to add to this collection another set of filters. So this is very similar, but what this is doing is it's picking up the choices of the industry. So it's going over each of the industries, and in the same way as it's creating this shape here, and the shape has the same structure. It's got a key, display name, etc. Now notice there's a little interesting thing here is that this is kind of like it's like a for loop, if you will. And we're using the fact that we're creating a sequence, which is a collection of numbers. So it'll start at 1, 2, 3, 4, count up. And the length of that is the number of rows we have in industry. And what we're doing here is then we're getting that I value, which is the number in that sequence. And we're using that to create a unique key. Because the thing about choices is that they don't have a kind of a unique key other than the text. And of course, that choice might have multiple values in it, which have got the same name. We don't know. It could be unique. We don't know if it's going to be unique. So what we're doing here is we're creating a unique key for each of those options using this approach here. Now we've got we've created this filter options. I'm just going to navigate away from this screen and then back again so we can just see that it's actually giving us a set of values. So if I hover over this and we go and have a look at what that is, we can see that it will have all of the different, these are the filters here. You can see it's got a filter with all the GUID values and unique keys, which has got on the end here, we've got the keys, which is the same using the GUID ID. And then if we come down here, we've got the industry's status. And if we look at the end here, we can see here we've got a unique key, which is industry 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that incrementing number. So we're going to use the Creator Kit picker control, the Fluent picker control. So if I come over to import components and come down to Fluent picker here, this is going to be, let's go and do that again. This is the control that allows us to have sort of like a very similar to a combo box where you can kind of select items, but there's more facility for colorizing items, adding icons, and a more flexibility in terms of how you control the items that are added, removed, suggested, in terms of the drop down suggestions that it provides. So once we've got this, if we go over into the Fluent Picker here, I'm going to go and add this into the filters container. If you remember, that's our structure. So we've got the root, and then we've got the command bar filter container, and then the grid container. So I'll add it into that. Just select the picker to pop it in there. And I won't give it a data source just yet. But what I am going to do is just make it a little bit bigger. And we'll style this in a minute to kind of eventually get rid of these other elements that we don't need. And so I'm going to call this combo filter. I mean, you might want to call it picker filter. But if we look at the instructions here, the picker control has got a little bit of code right down the bottom here, which you would put into the onChange event, because the onChange event gives you a tag event and a tag key. And so when you add an item, you select an item from the suggested items, that the event would be add, and when you remove it, you can use remove. And this is where the flexibility comes, because rather than it just being a sort of like an internal functionality to the control, you're getting full control over actually what happens. Additionally, you got full control over the suggestions as well. Unlike the standard combo you get with custom pages, that you just give it something and it will search those items. And so I'm going to use very similar code to this, and I'm going to paste this in. Let's go over into here's our picker there. And if we come over into the picker advanced area, go to the onChange and select this. So let's just take a look at what this does. And so firstly, it's saying there's a switch statement on the event. And if it's add, then the idea here is that it's going to do this with statement to get this selected item. So it's looking up inside this filtered options. If you remember, that's the filter options we just created inside our onVisible. And it's saying if it's finding the selected item using the key. So the tag key that the picker gives us is the key that has been selected. And so it's finding that selected item. And if it's found it, if it's not blank, then it's adding it in to this collection here, this col selected filters. And so in a similar way, removing, what we've got here is, if it's remove, we are just simply removing where the key equals the tag key. And so you can see that's where the actual flexibility comes. So in order to tell the picker which is the key, we need to go over into the advanced properties here, and we have to basically tell it that it's the key property is going to be the key property that it uses, that it gives us in that tag key when we have an add event or a remove event. Okay, so that's all very well and good. But what also happens is, if we go back into our advanced, our onChange, when we've added and removed, what we also need to do is make sure that if we've changed any of the filtering, we also need to go and run that filter, apply filters. Because if you remember, that's the same thing. We had an onChange in our combo box previously. When it changed, we applied the filters. One of the things that this picker does is it also gives us the ability to have full control over the suggestions. So there is a suggestions collection here. Much the same as if we had a combo box where you're providing it with the items. But what we've got here is we've got the search term that it's providing. So rather than just automatically searching internally, we're actually manually giving the search that we want to provide it with. And so what we're saying here is, if the search term is star, then give all the options. Otherwise, it's performing this filter here, and it's simply searching this col filter options. If you remember, that's the collection that we created in the onVisible, and we're using the search term to search the display name. And there's just this additional item here to say, well, actually, we only want to search for the items if they're not already in the selected filters, because selected filters is what we were adding and removing the items from in our picker on change event. Because if we've added, like, I don't know, vehicle rentals already to our picker, we don't want to suggest that again. So you can see here, this gives us this kind of functionality to be able to fully control how this suggestion works. And in the same way, we need to go over to an advanced, and in the same way as we set the suggestion key, the tag key here, what we also need to do is come down to the suggestion and define the suggestion key as well. So let's go and set this to be key, so that it's always going to know which attribute to use, which column to use as the unique key. But of course, we've also got some additional properties here, like display name. So let's give it the display name as we're telling the suggestions, and also we're going to give it the display name for the tags as well. So that will be here. Let's pop that there, like that. And so let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so if I search for hot, for example, so there we go, we've got hot. Also, let's search for consulting. There we go. Now notice if I just type 3, it's giving us this continue typing prompt. And the reason that is because there's this property on here, if we go into the properties, which is the actual number, the minimum search term length. So you can see it's this, here we go, the minimum search term length. And so we've got it set at 3. So I'm going to set it to be 1. So at least now, when I type a single value, it's actually going to give us all of the values, all of the items that have R in it. Of course, I can also type star, because remember our logic allows it. But we want to give it a little bit more panache, a little bit more snazziness. And the way we can do that is, if you remember in our account statuses, we had a column for color, text color, and background color, which we used in our status column. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tell this control to use the text color like that, and also the background color. And we'll use it, not only we're going to use it for the actual tags, we're also going to use it for the suggestions as well. So text color like that, and background color like that. But we've also got, for the tags, we can also provide like an icon as well. Because if you remember, we had an icon name in our statuses definition. So I can pick icon name like that. And so now, if I go and type R, you can see that it is giving us a much nicer set of formatting. The actual industry types are not formatted, but these items are formatted. Now, one of the things that, if I select like this wholesale, it's not actually doing something. It's not adding anything in here. And the reason that is that the items are set to none here. And this is one of the really cool things about the picker, is that we've got the ability to fully control the items that are displayed inside this picker. So I'm going to go and set the item, and I'm just going to say, well, say the selected filters for now. So you can immediately see, there we go. It's showing the items that are we've already selected, and I can now remove them. But we also want to make sure that the height is going to respond to the items, because if I add in lots of long items, you can see it's sort of scrolled off the bottom here, because it's going to wrap. And obviously I could make it fully much wider, but on a narrow format, that's not going to help much. So luckily what we've got here is a property which we can use to automatically manage the height of this container here, this filters container. And you can see it here at the moment, the height is just set manually to 32. But what I can do is I can say, let's make this height to be filters here like that, and then I can set this to be the auto height property. So you can see here it's automatically moved to be the actual height that it's expanded out to. So if I now run that and put in an additional one here, you can see it's pushing it down. And as I remove them, then it shrinks back down. And the great thing, the other thing about this is that it will also, it's all fully accessible. So I can press delete to remove them. And also I can say, so if I type R, I can just use the arrow keys up and down to scroll up and down, and then I can just select items with return. And then if I just use Shift Tab, I can go back and forward. Now, and of course, this is the thing about if you created a control similar to using a canvas component, then these are the things that perhaps you would lose and you wouldn't be able to implement as easily, or maybe not even at all, using those kind of constructs that you get with the ability when we use the creator kit. Now, as I'm adding these, you'll notice obviously it's not filtering, which ultimately is the whole reason that we want to do this. So what we need to do is add in that functionality. We've got our apply filters button. So if we go into what that looks like, so this is from our previous video where we are doing count rows, and we've got a filter here, which is our filter that we're using currently, which is a very simple filter on the industry drop down, which is a single value. So we want to add in a much more complicated filter there that says, okay, is the industry in the filtered industries in that picker, and also is the status is in any of the items that we have in that picker. Now, until very recently, the in operator was not delegatable under some circumstances. But the really good news is that now we have got the ability to delegate in on GUIDs, and it means that we can actually very easily implement this functionality. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go and add in a little bit at the top here, a little update context, which is going to do something very simple, which is going to go and grab from the selected filters, all of the items that are a status, and getting the GUID value. And if you remember, we set that GUID value inside when we created the items from the account statuses. And it's just going to add all of those into effectively an array, this contact status filter GUIDs. And we're also then going to say, well, if it's empty, then we just using this is empty on that filter, then we just set this Boolean value. And then also do exactly the same for industries, collect all of the industries into an array, and we pick up the choice value rather than the GUID value. And then again, we're using this Boolean value if in the same way, if there are no values in that collection, then we'll set this. And what this is doing is it's just allowing us to kind of have this logic in single place that we can use it in multiple different places. Because if you remember, there are two places that we need to update the filters. There's the count rows, because we're going to do an aggregate count rows. And there's also the actual filtering of the rows that we bind to the details list. So by doing this, we're just simply creating these variables in one place and using them in multiple. Now, I'm going to be doing a video in the future on imperative programming versus declarative programming. And this is one of those examples of where we're moving into much more imperative programming, because we are sort of optimizing this, because we don't want to have to do this lots of different times. We just want to do it once and then reuse this. Whereas actually we could copy this logic into multiple different places. So it's one of those things that it does make sense as you start to create applications like this. And so what we can do is we can now update this filter. So I'm going to remove the previous filter that we had, which was just using that single select combo box. And I'm going to replace it with a little bit more of a complex filter. And that is simply saying that if the account status is in the list of GUIDs, here we've got that list of GUIDs that we created above, or if the industry is in that list of choice values. And this is as I was saying before, this is the in operator that is now delegatable. So it's like really, really cool, because this is now just gets sent off to the server and it all happens on the server. Of course, we also need to have this or statement here, which is going to be say, okay, if it's empty, then return them all, because we may not have anything inside this collection here or this collection here. And so in that case, we want to return all of them. And that's why we have that or statement. So now we've done that, put the filter there. What we also want to do is put the filter over in the gallery. And remember, in the last episode, we had bound our details list to the gallery to enable us to actually manage our paging in a fully delegatable way without having to worry about using add columns and all of those kind of things. So, and also allowing us to externally control sorting, etc. So if we go into the items of this gallery, if you remember before, we had this switch statement to say based on which different column we are sorting by. And incidentally, it would be worth pointing out here, and I've had a few questions about this, that because you need to make the statement, the expression that you're doing very, very declarative in terms of telling Power Apps what you want to filter on in order to get it fully delegatable. That's why we need this switch statement. We can't make it dynamic because it needs to know, the app needs to know when it is effectively packaged up and run. It needs to know the kind of columns that it's going to bring back. As soon as you make a dynamic expression using strings, comparisons, or string columns, etc., then it means that it can no longer do that, having the understanding of the schema and make sure our queries are all going to be delegatable and bring back only the columns that it needs. Which is why we have to have this very, very declarative set of switch statements to say, this is our sort, this is our sort, this is our sort, rather than a dynamic set. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace this filter here with that filter that we had. And of course, it's in a few different places here because we've got the different sorts and the different filters going into each of those different sorts. So there we go. So now if we run that and we apply filters and remove that, so now we can say, if we type consulting here, we've now got just consulting. If I add in vehicle rentals like that, we've now got vehicle rentals and consulting, hopefully. So if I sort by descending on that, if I go to the top, sort, there we go. We've got consulting and vehicle rentals, which is really cool. So, and then we've got inside this collection, we've got prospects as well as hot. If I filter it just down to say hot, now we can bring it down to be hot, just the hot values. Now we've got that very sophisticated multiple value sort, and so the user can just simply add what they want to and then just simply remove them. So I'm going to say actually going to remove vehicle rentals, so just to have the consulting and just to be hot. Okay, great. So let's make this a little bit better at the top here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide this button here because actually we don't need it to be visible because it's just a function, right? We don't actually need to press it manually. And so we're going to, let's make it visible, make it false like that so that we don't end up seeing it. And we now can just delete this. It served us well, that combo box with the choices. And in our reset button, rather than resetting the combo, what we're going to do is we're just going to clear that collection. And I could actually, have other saved filters. So I could have like a drop-down box that had different saved filters that I would just simply pre-populate this collection, and that would automatically reflect inside this picker here. So there's lots of things that we could do with this application. And I'm going to position this as well. So let's position this here as X. Let's position it at 8U and on the X value. So it looks kind of nice. And then we'll make the width of it. So let's make it parent.width minus self.x times 2. So it's kind of centered. But also we're going to minus the filter button, because we want to add that filter button onto the end. And so why is that? It's okay. So this is a circular reference. The reason it's giving me an error there is it's saying that I'm subtracting the width from the combo filter from the width formula that I'm using. So it's referencing itself, which we can't do. So I want to subtract the clear filters width, which is that button there. And what I'm going to do is select that clear filters, and we're going to move that on to be, so the X position of that is going to be let's make it parent.width, and we're going to position that at -8 times U, like that. And so it's right on the end there. And then also let's subtract from that self.width. There we go. All right, so we've now got the clear button there. So if I press this now, they all get removed. And so that is basically the whole piece around filtering. Gives us all of that complex filtering. And of course, this is all delegatable. So if we go into our tools and open monitor here, then we should be able to see that all of the filtering is done on the server and the paging is done on the server. So let's run here and let's type in consulting services like that and go over into our monitor here. Then if we look at get rows, we can look at our request and we can see here that we've got a filter which is saying it's equal to this GUID here, and then it's using also the in operator here on the industry code. So the more filters I add, so if I add in another filter on status, so let's say cold, like that, go back into here and go back to get rows, what we should see now is a OR statement. So we're looking at the account status and we're looking at equals, and we've got the GUID here, and then we've got this OR as well, and so and then we're doing another equals. So you can see it's all happening on the server. And if we page through it, so I've added in 4 status filters there, so that gets us up to 537. So if we go up here and we go up to our, and here it's got get rows, so I'm going to clear that data there. And if I go up to our last page, we should see that we get more rows. And the get more rows has got all of the equals in there, the ORs, and it's also got our skip token, which we saw last time in our paging. So it's fully delegatable, paging, filterable, which is awesome. Well, that's all for today. I shall see you in the next episode when we start to add the command bar and some navigation. And please subscribe. Please just subscribe. But until next time, have a great rest of your day. Cheers.